right, here we go, part two. 2 periods later is social studies, and Miss Rochambeau is coming round to collect an essay that's due that I've yet again done a wonderful job of not doing. She whispers when she gets to my desk and I don't have anything to turn in. I'd like you to stay after class so we can talk. I don't say a word or even nod, but she walks away like I've agreed to it. Sure enough, when there's just a few minutes left of class and my tentacles start working to gather up my papers, Miss Rochambeau, who has been reading us excerpts of Daniel Webster's, Henry Clay's, and John Calhoun's speeches in Congress about the Compromise of 1850, wanders over to my desk without missing a beat and rests her hand on my notebook. Doesn't matter how many tentacles I have, she's not going to let me pack up my notebook. When the class has been dismissed and I'm still in my seat, Miss Rochambeau finally removes her hand from my desk. "Thank you for staying after, Zoe," she says. Well, I didn't exactly have a choice. Miss Rochambeau pulls the neighboring student desk over and sits down in it. "Now," she says. Her big earrings are bouncing off the collar of a different turtleneck sweater. "We could talk about how much your grade will suffer if you don't turn in this reflection essay, but instead I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about your participation in debate club." I watch her through the slits of my octopus eyes, nice and steady. "I want to know why you're not trying." I glance at the clock. "And I want to know what kind of person you want to be." I want to be the kind of person that doesn't have to sit here and have this conversation. "What's your next class?" she asks. "Computer tech," I say. "So it's all the way down in the other wing, so I'd better leave right now." "Great," she says without standing up. "That means we have the next 43 minutes to dig into this. I have a prep period right now, and Mr. Roberts will definitely understand why you weren't able to be in class today. I'll be happy to talk with him about it over lunch." It's like my octopus body has gotten trapped in a net, but there has to be an opening somewhere. I can just stay calm and avoid getting tangled up. "Marcy?" Another teacher pops her head into the room. "Do you have a minute?" Maybe they open me. My tentacles spring back to life and I stand up from my chair. "Sit back down," Miss Rochambeau says to me. To the other teacher, she says, "Sorry, another time maybe? This is important." I slide back into my chair in a net, and now I'm getting poked with a stick. She even thinks it's important to poke me with a stick. An imaginary stick, of course. Important. Me. Once the other teacher is gone, Miss Rochambeau turns back to me. She says things, but I'm not listening. No one has ever connected me with being important. The things that they want me to do are important. Do my homework, bring a pencil, wear sneakers for PE. But somehow this feels different. Miss Rochambeau has stopped talking and is looking like she's waiting for me to say something. When I don't, she says again, "Zoe, what kind of person do you want to be?" I stare down at my notebook. What am I supposed to say to that? "I don't know," I finally mumble. I wait for Miss Rochambeau to say that's okay because "I don't know" almost always gets a teacher to move on. But she doesn't. Instead, she stares at me harder and finally says, "Then I'm glad you have some time right now to think about it." I shift in my seat. "Here," she says. "Stand up. I want you to come over here." She goes over to her desk in the front corner of the room and starts clearing off the top of it. She moves a pile of paper to the top of a filing cabinet and then pulls out a cushy rolling chair. "Come sit," she says. "At your desk?" She nods. "I want you to imagine you're an adult, and I want you to picture the life you want to have. Oh, and hold on." She bends down and rummages in one of the cupboards behind her desk until she pulls out a bag of pretzels. Good hard thinking is always easier with a little food. I slowly make my way towards her desk. When I finally reach the cushy rolling chair, I look at her. "Really?" "Really," she says. I sink down into it. I rest my arm on its armrests. I lean my head back. I survey the classroom like a kingdom. Like all those hard plastic desks are my kingdom. I lean forward and take a pretzel. I'm ready to start telling myself a story about the pretzel-eating queen when Miss Rochambeau takes a seat in the front row of the student desks. "Does it feel different there?" she asks. I nod. I take another pretzel. "Good," she says. "That should help. Sometimes the walls of the hole we're in are too close for us to see anything else." I stop eating the pretzel. "Are you saying I'm in a hole?" Miss Rochambeau doesn't move. "Do you think you're in a hole?" I feel my brow furrowing against my will. I need to be an expressionless wall that things just bounce off of like Silas. Or even better, so slimy that things just slide right off like any good octopus. But if people see that they're getting to you, they'll never let up. Of course not, I say quickly. I try to pretend that things are so easy right now that I could never even consider my life as a whole. But it's like a beautiful, flat, easy walking ground all the time, right? Maybe some bumps along the way, but that's just like the beautiful rolling hills they show in the ads to remind people they should come to Vermont for vacation. You know that Ace Period Debate Club is ending, and a new rotation starts next week, right? Do I know that? Well, of course not. I don't usually listen to the teacher, so that makes sense. Miss Rochambeau leans forward. The real debate club is going to be starting after school next week, and I want you to be a part of it. Because I've done such a great job during Ace Period, the crack slips out before I can stop it, but Miss Rochambeau doesn't flinch. She just keeps staring me down. She can't be serious. But after school, I need to pick up your brother and sister, right? She says. What time does the Head Start bus drop them off? About 3:55. Great. Debate club goes until 3:30, and then I can give you a ride to their bus stop. I checked to make sure that I could legally drive a student, and as long as your mom gives consent, it's fine. She'd be willing to be my personal driver? It's mind-blowing enough that I can almost forget that we're talking about staying after school for a debate club. Almost, but not quite. We'll meet every day after school except for Tuesday when there's a faculty meeting. The tournament is at the beginning of March. She gives me a hard look. I look away. Zoe, only you can choose what kind of person you become. My eyes drift to the tops of the trees that I can see out the window. Bare branches, gray sky, nothing else. That assumes I have a choice, I say. Miss Rochambeau practically leaps out of her seat. But you do have a choice. You make choices every day, and maybe you can't see how they could affect your future, but they do. She's quiet for a moment as she stands there. I want you to know, she finally continues, that I was the first person in my family to graduate school and go to college. Since life isn't fair, it's often up to us to balance it out. I look at her. She's looking back at me like she's trying to explode me with her eyes. What made the difference for me, she says, was the advice someone gave me back when I was in middle school. I still don't believe that she was anything like me. It wasn't fair and it wasn't easy, she continues, but it was the only way forward if I wanted a future for myself. I want to look away, but I also want to know what they said. What is it? She chews on her lip without taking her eyes off of me. I'll tell it to you, and then I'm going to leave you alone for the rest of the period. Okay. Are you ready? She asks. I nod. You sure? I nod again. Well, here it is. She stands up. Suck it up. Then she picks up a folder of papers and walks out of the room. And that's chapter 11. We're really seeing Zoe has never had an adult really take an interest in her, and Miss Rochambeau is, I think, going to be a really good influence on Zoe, feeling valuable as she should. You enjoyed chapter 11 as much as I did.